All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Happy to say we're going to start doing some soccer previews with coaches from all around the shore. My first guest is Coach Justin Meehan from St. John Vianney. Thanks for joining me, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. I look forward to doing this. You were one of the first coaches. Very happy that I was doing this. Volunteered right away to talk about your program. So I'm glad to have you on to get this started and kicking this off the next couple of weeks. My first question: when did you start coaching soccer?
So the funny enough story about me coaching is I was a player and had never really coaching never really crossed my mind until my freshman year of college. I wound up getting hurt and I was not able to play that year, and I knew I was going to redshirt, and my coach had kind of put me on to an alumni who was coaching a local middle school team, and I've never been able to get away from it since. So
That's great. What position did you play when you played?
I think because the game was different then, I played much more in like on a wing or an attacking midfielder position. But I think if we were, and I joke about this all the time, I would have been an outside back in today's game, like the way it's changed. That would have been my perfect spot.
It's amazing. Now, my dad made me get my coach's license when I was 15. Start coaching with him, and I talk about how much the game has changed from what's it, 24 years ago almost, and yeah, is it that long? Yeah, and it's just faster, and kids are so much more versatile. It seems like where they're moving all over the field compared to back then.
For sure, I think the way we've been able to, for all the knocks on development, I think there's a lot of good trainers out there who are at least positionally teaching kids. And I think to be efficient in your attack, you have to be able to play from every spot. You can't, like, you used to be able to hide kids at outside back, or you put them on like you remember that stuff from like when we were 9, 10, you know what I mean? Like things like that. But I think at this point now, have been taught to play both ways. Like we don't have just defenders, or we don't have just forwards. Kids have learned that they have to, all 10 players plus even the goalie now has to be able to play with their feet. So, I mean, the game has changed tremendously.
Yeah, one of the parents I'm close with. Daughter's a senior and a goalie, but she just did a local tournament down South Jersey and guest playing, and she played the field. And college coaches like that. They liked what they saw with her being able to play on the field, and plus, she's a very good goalie. So, like you said, I think that's a plus. Being able to move over, especially if you're looking to play at the next level.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the conversation begins and ends with a goalkeeper, or it can end at least very quickly if they can't play with their feet, I think. And that's, a major change from when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Goalie didn't have to do that at all. So
it's
you
basically
just had to keep the ball out of the net.
when you were younger. Back when our age, you raise your hand. Who wanted to play goalie, and whoever raised their hand was the one who got stuck in the net back then. And then you trained them to be a goalie.
Right.
When did you start at St. John Vianney?
So I started 4 years ago. I was the assistant coach for a year under Teddy Ritter.
Okay.
And then Teddy had left the program. And I had, obviously, I'd just grown it was my first year coaching girls, was my year at St. John Vianney. I had previously coached boys at Red Bank Catholic and at Mater Dei. And what I found coaching girls, and especially at this program, was that they had this drive to want to know the knowledge that I think as a coach is something that I take a lot of pride in, understanding the game, understanding the nuances. And I felt like the girls really wanted that information. And I just thought it was a great fit for us.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great that you got to coach both and see the differences. And obviously I cover mostly girls. I coached girls, and it's always something they seem like they want it more. Sometimes they want always get better, like they have something to prove, and it's fun to watch.
I think they just have a totally different, and one of the things I've learned is it's totally different, like psychological process with the girls, right? It's about like, can I check these boxes, and can I achieve these goals, and can I like tangibly prove that I'm better? Plus, can I try and rationalize decision making and all that stuff? And with the boys, it does become a little more like, am I the more alpha male, the more physical person? And I think that like it's just a difference in the two games. I mean, I'm coaching boys in club, and you have to realize that as you're teaching them, it's not the same animal it is with teaching with coaching high school girls.
Um, what are some accomplishments St. John Vianney's had since you started as an assistant?
So the first year I was there, we were the number 3 seed in the short conference tournament. It didn't have I've never had, in the 4 years anyway, I haven't had the postseason run that we were hoping for. Last year, I think was our first like really big crack through postseason wise. But I think accomplishments for me would be like we've been in the division race every year, and we've played we've played a who's who schedule. I mean, the last 2 years we opened up with 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the short conference to start the season.
I actually pulled up your schedule right before you came on, and I was looking at your earlier games, and you started off with a very tough schedule.
And it never got any easier,
Yeah.
and it's, you go and you get invited, you get the honor of being invited to play in like that showcase, the mountains versus the seas, and you can't say no to that. So even though you could use a break for the girls could use a break to, and you go play them, and in our division there isn't any breaks. So I think that in any year, I mean, RBR was really good
Yeah.
last year, and so was Matawan, and Wall's always good, and Manasquan's good, and Freel Borough knocked us out of short conference tournament 2 years ago. So I think that like maybe the record hasn't been like tremendous, but I think that the thing we hang our hats on is we'll play anybody. Like, let's settle it out on the field. And, listen, we've been beat by some better teams, and we've beaten ourselves a couple times, and it's worked both ways. We haven't been the better team and have gotten a couple wins. So, I think that I would say our accomplishment is that we don't back down, and we're not scared to play anybody.
Yeah, when we talk about next season, we'll talk about, I saw you guys play a couple of times, and that's definitely, especially when we get to talk about short conference tournament last season, you guys did not back down, fought to the last minute in that game. Since you started, who are some of the players that, meant a lot, to your program since you started St. John Vianney?
So, so when I got there, some players that meant when I was there was a great core that was already established when I walked in. And I think that like they just wanted to reach the next level. So we're talking about like Logan Laspinoza, Cameron Cox, Chloe Sherman, Jada Trotta, Megan Urbelis, the goalkeeper, the 2 goalies, Emily Rowan and Erica Blackburn, all solid players with a solid foundation. And then from there, every year we've had a different group move into that leadership role. I think last year we had Erin Gilflin, who was a 3-year starter for us, who was a huge leader for us. We had Abby Sari, who was our leading scorer, also a 3-year starter for us, who's playing at Merrimack now, Erin at Catholic. And then we had the luxury getting Vic Coppola back from the DA last year, and she's playing at Wesleyan now. So we had 2 college-level center backs and a college-level center mid/forward, and that kind of really helps your team.
Yeah, Abby, she was definitely impressive. Watching her play last year, unbelievable player,
and a better person. Like, for all the great things I could say about her as a player, her just as a person, like, and a coachable human being inside the classroom and out of the classroom, you really can't find anything negative to say about the kid. She's fantastic. All of them are.
Yeah, let's transition into that. The seniors that you're losing, not so much, what they meant on the field, but off the field, what each of those seniors that graduated meant to the team.
So I believe there were 7 of them. All of them had their own identity. There was, Amanda was our smiler, and we, like when the team needed somebody to pick them up and like everybody was ready to crumble, we looked around, Amanda was smiling. Like, Abby Sari was the glue that was in the middle of the field. Jamie Huser, another huge player for us, was our grit. Vic was the like positive voice on the field. Erin kept everybody calm. Ariana Velasco was just the hardest working player. And I know I'm missing somebody right at the moment, and it's escaping my mind, and I'll eat crow for it later. But I think that they all. The thing that with the group last year, which made them so successful in the postseason, and if you look at the result against Pingree, you can tell, it is that they all had that piece that we were very comfortable that whatever we needed, one of the 7 of them could provide.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Kira Diamond was she had overcome a bunch of obstacles to get on the field, whether it was health, moving positions, us moving things around, And I think that her adaptability was that like that other piece that at the last minute, if we had to change things, she was a kid that we could throw her in anywhere, and she would be like, okay, I'll make the best of this. You're going to get everything I have, and we're going to go from there.
Yeah, having such a good, senior class, as you see, everyone brought their own thing, helps balance, keep the team balanced too, I find, which, is good in the long run. Let's talk a little bit about your schedule last year. Like you said, you are in a tough division,
Sure.
Red Bank Regional, Wall. Do you think that helps get your team prepared when it comes to the Shore Conference and states playing such a tough schedule early on?
So I I love the tough schedule because I felt like when my first year there as an assistant, the one knock everybody had on us in the seating meeting was we didn't play anybody. I mean, even
Everyone
though
has that knock, right?
uh,
It seems like
right,
everyone has that knock.
right. I mean, even though we tied Shore Regional twice that year, and they were
They're always
phenomenal.
there. Yep.
They were phenomenal. They had Frankie, and and they still had Frankie. They had Hannah Bersall, and they had Julia. Still had Julia, who's one of the best goal scorers the Shore's ever seen. And I'm like, we didn't play anybody. But we played RBC that year. That was our only loss during the regular season. But I think that was the lesson that I learned. As a coach, every season you go through and you're like, okay, here's something I have to change about the way we're doing things because it has to be better. We have to give a better product to the players the next year. And I think my takeaway from the first year was we need to schedule harder. And then as I was going in from last year, this year, I started thinking to myself like, okay, we have to try and maybe break our schedule up a little bit where we get some days where we can like develop the reserves because I don't think our depth was there. And I think that's was a flaw of the design in the schedule. Now this year, we're not going to get to dictate our schedule, which good or bad, let's just get out on the field, please.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some advantages and disadvantages to that. You're going to see a team twice, so you can't sneak up on anybody.
Yeah.
If you win two, you're going to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Against anybody in any division, really.
And especially since you're basically you're playing back to back. You're not breaking it up. We'll talk about the schedule a little bit. Before we get into states and Shore conference from last year, what were some accomplishments players had through last season, or team goals you set that you guys accomplished?
So I think as far as like individual accomplishments, Abby Sierra with 10 and 10, so 10 goals, 10 assists. We hadn't found somebody that had done that for our program going back, so that I thought that was a huge deal. I think our ability to keep one of the team goals we had set was to be a really good defensive team, and I think it's tough to like tangibly define that.
Yeah.
But I think that when we looked at that, the litmus test for us was like, was that goal earned or not earned? Did they have to earn that goal, or was it something that we did that gave them that opportunity? It's something that I think that as we went back and we looked at the 30 some odd goals, right, like over the season, the vast majority of them are earned. Like they weren't things that we did to ourselves. And I think accomplishments, I think that the moment I knew this team was going to be okay was we were at Colts Neck and we were down. We scored a goal with a couple seconds left, and it never felt alarming that we were down. As like, and that feeling like as you're watching the clock and like you look up and you go, oh no, there's 10 minutes left. In soccer, it's not a lot of time.
No.
5 minutes. And you're like going, oh no, no, no. And we get a corner kick with like less than a minute left. And it is one of the first times in my coaching career I've been calm on the sideline in that situation. And I think it was just like I've talked about Vic Copel before, just like that calming presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that like it's going to happen for us. So that was, being that resilient and scoring goals when we needed them. And I think there was like different goals we had put on different people at different times. I don't think we like fixated on one goal. Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to win state and you want to win Shore Conference. And I think you want to do those things for the seniors so they like have a legacy. But I think like as far as those different type goals, I think we did a really good job with those last year.
And I like what you said, sometimes, goals change throughout the season too, whether for a player or, for the team, which is good to adjust and change, something might not be working, change it up, same thing with the goal, or if you hit a goal, set another goal.
Well, even from the standpoint of like, look, everybody starts the season and wants to win their division, win state, and win the short conference, right? But that's not a realistic thing for
Yeah.
every team. I mean, after 2 weeks of the season, sometimes, right? I listen. I've been on that side of it too. So you're like, all right, well, that's out the window. So now let's because you don't want them to get stale either, where they're like, okay, we can't hit our goal, so then now it's no longer
Yeah.
something we talk about.
Yeah. Now talk about short conference. You guys play. Who'd you play first? Manawan first round.
Right. Second run with Matawan,
Yeah. And then you was it Tom's River North after that? Was
Tom's River North. Yeah.
I was at that game now.
You promised you weren't going to bring that up.
Yeah, honestly though, I was thinking about it last night, or the night before, and I said that might have been one of the top 5 games that I saw last season. Because you guys were trailing, you didn't give up. You guys tied it, and then they scored, right? Was that? Did it go?
So we tied. We had tied it,
Mhm.
and then they had hit. And then we had hit a ball that we thought was in.
Yeah, the crossbar. Yes, I remember that.
And then they came down, and our sophomore goalie makes a good first save, and then
yes.
Listen, grab the kid's leg. It's a PK. And
Honestly, there's goalies are trained to do that. If there's no defender, you got to do whatever you can.
Listen, and she was huge for us all year.
Yeah.
And she kept us in that. She made 3 or 4 saves in that game.
Yes, she did. She was very good that game.
That game, honestly, I would have loved to have been there as a fan. It wasn't much fun as a coach.
Yeah.
And I think you could talk to
That's
Tom. Tom would say the same thing.
That's why to me it was, one of the top 5 games I saw all season. Because I'm there as a fan just watching soccer. But it was fun to watch, and I keep to myself, so I wasn't near the Tom's River fans. I wasn't near the St. John Vianney. I was just, because you asked me about the goal, I was on the other side of the one that hit the cross the bar and bounced down. I was on the other side of the field, so I did not, I didn't have a good view on it. Now the first half I was down at that end, so I was actually lined up right there, so I would have had a good look at it.
And the thing for me, the thing that the one thing I keep going away from that game is I just always felt like no matter how we cut it, there should have been another goal to decide that game. That wasn't a PK. That wasn't a questionable crossbar. I just felt like that game with all the all the talent that was on the field, everything that the girls put out, both teams. I thought that it should have we should have. I don't know. I would have been mad with a shootout too, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I hate shootouts in the playoffs. Yeah, but
you could play forever though. Those were 2 great defensive teams. We could have played forever. I feel like,
especially teams don't want to give an inch either.
No.
I think that was the first time I saw Tom's River North. Then I watched them against the first half against Freehold in the semis.
Okay.
They had some very fast forwards.
They're good.
Yeah.
Both teams are good.
I actually talked to their coach 2 nights ago. He's going to come on next week.
He's a good guy. Smart guy too.
So I look for that. And, Tom's River always has strong programs over there. So, Tom's River Wall, they always have their strong programs. Starts from the youth though. But talk a little bit about states. I didn't get to see you guys during states. You lost to Pingree, who was the eventual, state champion. Can you just talk about that game for a couple minutes?
So that was a game where going in, you knew what Pingree was, right? And their Madison Pilla, this phenomenal, and she scored the game clincher against us or the game winner, was this beautiful left-footed volley. You could tell why she's going where she's going. She's a phenomenal player. They had 4 or 5 players who were really, really good, and our emphasis was just dig in defensively and not make mistakes. And I think we did a really good job. We were tied 1-1 at the half, and you could really feel like they were nervous about it because it was not a position that they had normally been in. And then about 10 minutes into the half, Abby Sierra hit a ball that just missed our forward, cutting to the back post. And then we also hit another crossbar. And then they came down and scored 3 goals within about 11 minutes or 12 minutes. And they had just asserted after they grabbed the second one, you could tell the air went out of the balloon on us. And we were just okay. We had missed 2 golden opportunities to get ourselves on the front foot. And when it didn't happen and then they scored, I mean, that girl Pilla, that goal she hit was unreal. And it was just like, it was so backbreaking. But I guess that's why those are the teams that win states, the teams that can cripple your will.
Yeah.
That's like those are those teams that are special, and that team was certainly special last year.
I see that in soccer. You see that in soccer a lot, where one team, has a couple good opportunities, and just can't finish, and then the other team comes down, and then like you said, the air gets, it gets tough.
You could feel it, like it, and from a coaching standpoint, you're like trying to like take deep breaths. And honestly, we only had played maybe 2 people off the bench the entire game. We were without a player that really helped us depth-wise that could like move all over the field. And it was like right at that moment where we would normally have been like looking to put her in. And I think like it just totally like whacked us, right? Like, right in the gut.
Yeah, no, it's, with the exception, RBC's deep, but St. Rose was not very deep. They didn't have a deep
Right.
bench. And then you get a couple injuries that even shortens your bench a little bit. So it sounded like you guys were in similar situation.
I just think in that moment it was leaning on the seniors, like those older players, as much as possible. Like you're going to this environment where they like, okay, because of busing, we had to get there like 2.5 hours early. So we sat in like the squash courts and did pregame. Yep. So that's like an element. We had kids like, we didn't go deep on the bench, like I said, because it's that like potential last game and you want to lean on the kids that got you there.
Yep.
So when it's a little chilly and you're, I think, looking back, would I've done things different? Maybe, but I think that we gave them as good of a game as we possibly could. So,
it sounds it. Before we start talking about next season, start the talent in New Jersey, throughout the whole state, especially the Shore. I had a ref, one of the games I was at, and, I questioned the refereeing a lot, and I'm a neutral, when I go to the games, I'm neutral. And one of the things, to me, the ref's primary for soccer is, protect the players. You could blow a call, whatever. Just, my thing is, I refed when I was younger. You got to protect the players on the field. And this one guy was phenomenal. Best ref I saw all season. I went up to him after the game in the parking lot, and I just, said, just want to say you did a great job. And he says to me, I used to ref college, didn't want to travel anymore. So I'm, just doing, high school in New Jersey. And he says, I request Shore Conference soccer because it is the best. He says he just loves ref and Shore Conference, watching it. He said watching it as a ref, he goes, it's so good. Talk a little, just the talent in the Shore alone, and you going up against it, you have talent on your team.
I mean, so there's a reason that, if you look at the results from last year when we went and played, is it the Skylands Conference? I think that's the name of the conference, which is probably, I would say, the other like conference that's up there for best of, top to bottom. And we won everyone but one in that, like, we were 7-1 against them. Now the year before they won 7 out of the 8. But I think, top to bottom is and just if you look around the state, and even as a club coach, as I've gone around, and I'm like, can't believe the amount of clubs on the boys and girls side that have like elite level teams. Just for an example, I went down to a tournament in Maryland, and we were in a group there's 7 teams, and 6 of them are from New Jersey. And we're down at an invitational in Maryland, and on the other side and I think it just speaks to the volume of high level players we have. And it's, PDA leads the way, and then you have Cedar Stars, you have Princeton, you have Copa, you have all these other clubs that they're developing world class, and all up in South Jersey elite, down south, like they're just everywhere. And then even the townships, like you were talking about, Toms River's always got a great team, Wall's got a great team, Freehold's always got one, Middletown's always got one. I think that it just like, because they're playing at such a young age and they're forced to compete, like they can't go a town over and just beat the daylights out of a team most of the time. I think it develops kids who continue to play and continue to want to get better and continue to want to, be able to beat the next town over because there's some pride in it.
Yeah. And I mean, that one PDA team, I think the current sophomore class, they went down far, played what, Manchester City, they're,
Yeah, we have a player. We have a player that plays for that team, and she's phenomenal.
yeah,
But
I
that
mean,
I watched them play Chelsea, and was it Barca? They played Barca and Man
yeah,
City. It was so entertaining.
yeah. And, it was fun going on ESPN3 and getting to, watching them too. That was something, players that, I get to see, on the field here, it was
Of
fun to
course.
watch. And, that team, that team's loaded. Let's preview this coming season. Very different season than what you're going to be used to. First, let's talk about how, as a coach, how did you handle the COVID, the phases that the state rolled out? Was it tough? Just talk about that for a minute.
I mean, after you've been doing something for this many years, to try and change is always different, right? So for the coaches, it's different. For the players, it's different. Um, I was just really fortunate. I think like we had a really good support staff from like our athletic trainers, Maya and Karen, to our athletic director, Mike Albert, to our school leadership, Mr. DeMazza, Mr. Lamberson, Ms. Kane. I think that like we, for as a school, we did as good as you possibly could to make the transition and to make it as easy on our athletes as possible. Of course, there was like precautionary steps in place and things we had to do, but I think our ability to kind of work together and work through the guidelines and see like, okay, here's what we can do. Here's the way we can do it safest. Here's best policies here. I think that it made it a lot easier than it potentially could have been. I think for the girls, it was a little frustrating because like they were going to club practice and full out scrimmaging and then
Yes.
going to our practice and being told like, you can't even share a ball with anybody else.
Yep.
I think that was like, that was like something we just had to get over, like,
Yeah.
And I think like, as we talk about like the new season, we're talking about like, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So like, let's just be here today and be our best version of ourselves today.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great way outlook to have for this. It's like you say, you don't know what's going to happen. School's starting. Who knows? With the kids going back, if you're going back full time, part time, who knows what's going to happen? Talk about the schedule. It's abbreviated schedule. You're just playing your division. Are you adding 2 games to outside the division?
So I'm not sure. We've been talking about that because I think the way it's set up, because our division has an extra team.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure if we have the space.
Okay.
And I think honestly,
I didn't know, because I know some divisions have that extra team compared to others,
right,
and those are divisions adding like a game.
correct, so that we can all get to a similar number to compare off of. I'm assuming, right?
No.
Now, I mean, I think for adding those extra games, it's hard though, because do you play home and home, or do you, what is the state going to allow? And again, look, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, because it's really just like, can we get started on the 14th, and can we get through that week?
Yeah.
And then can we get through the next week, and then the next week, and you know what I mean? And I think like that's the way we have to approach this year.
And definitely that's how you got to look at it this year. Let's talk about your division a little bit. It's still a tough division. Who you got? Red Bank Regional. Now I don't have it up in front of me. I don't know if it changed. I know divisions changed a little bit. Red Bank Regional. You said Wall, right?
Manasquan. Freehold Borough.
Borough.
I'm trying to pull up the schedule right now so I can be 100% truthful with what I'm giving you. So we open with Manasquan. We have Colts Neck, Neptune, Matawan, Wall, RBR, then Freehold Borough.
Matawan was tough games last season too for everyone.
They're going to be very similar personality-wise to us, I think, this year, because they lost a lot of seniors, but they had a couple good freshmen that like stepped in right away. So that you never know. You never know.
Yeah, and Red Bank Regional, they had what was her name?
Liva,
who's great.
She was fantastic.
Yeah. So, and Wall's always Wall. I know they lost a couple of players. They lost their defender, who was very.
I don't think like when we played Wall last year, I didn't think Wall was overwhelmingly great any one position, but I thought they were very good everywhere.
And to me, they hit their stride later, like close to the
He's great at that.
play because I saw them play early, when they played St. Rose opening day, and what they looked like that game and what they looked like at the end of the season were two different teams. Like it was
We
so
keep catching him at the end, unfortunately.
yeah. Um, we'll talk about you like you said, you lost a good senior class, all different personalities. Who are some players this season you expect to fill some of those voids for the seniors that left?
So I think like the team personality is probably going to be made up by Brooke Bonomo and Aaron O'Keefe, or two seniors who have played big minutes the past two seasons. And then I think you have a mix of like seniors who, need to kind of hold on to their what they feel like they're entitled to, like that earned right of like stepping up into the program, and then a big junior class that's really like pushing at their heels. I think different than last year, we're going to be a very deep team this year. So I think like again, I think you're going to see a lot of different people assume leadership positions, but I think that might not be as many seniors as possible or as normal, because there's not so many established seniors coming back this year.
How many seniors do you have this year?
So I think there's 6 or 7 again. And I think, most of them played for me last year, but they didn't play huge roles. So I think that like for them to find that groove of, or them or anyone else finding that groove of, who the starters are on it. And I don't think leadership necessarily always has to come from the players on the field. We've had some great character people previously who didn't play a ton of minutes. I remember my first year, we had a backup goalkeeper. She was a third string goalkeeper. And she wound up like winning the coach's award for the year because she was just such a positive person, but she, never really got on the field. But her vibe and the way she like communicated with her teammates and the positive energy that she was giving to the rest of the team was something that it simply couldn't go unnoticed.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for the girls too, is to realize that you don't always have to be on the field to make an impact.
No, 100%. What's your goalie's name again? I forget.
The starter from last year is Kelsey Nolan.
And she's going to be a junior?
She's going to be a junior, yes.
I mean that's big. Like she came up big many times last. Any players that were with you last year that might fly under the radar this season that it might surprise like say somebody like me that shows up to a game?
So if you were covering the team last year and then you picked up a roster from this year, I would urge you to circle. There's a bunch of names. I mean, Sophia Gambale, without giving away too much of her game. Super talented winger. She's a junior. She played a little bit with us last year. Leah Notaro, who's a sophomore, she played a little bit with us last year too. Pacey, skilled player. Kind of grew up a little bit between freshman and sophomore year. Lauren Husky played for us last year. She's sophomore. The juniors, Autumn Velasco has had a great camp. Kate O'Grady is another sophomore, has had a fantastic camp. We have a transfer who played for Homedale, Samantha Sportelli. She's had a fantastic camp as well. There's been a bunch of kids who've been super impressive, and the thing we keep talking about is I don't know how we're gonna get them down to 20. Is like the thing we keep talking about. Like normally like it's like okay, this group is clear. Group 1, 2, and 3 are pretty clear, and not because Group 1 isn't good. Group 1, 2, and 3 are all really good. So
yeah, that's
going to be an interesting 2 weeks.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of young players you got that that's good for for the future
Of course,
which is big private schools, that's how you got to build get the name out there any incoming freshmen catch your eye so far? Or
there's a bunch of incoming freshmen who have done well in camp, but it's really hard to establish an expectation when you haven't seen them play in a game.
Okay.
And as you know, there's plenty of kids who look great when you're in non-contact, no pressure situations, and then you get in. Right, and then you get and listen, for a 14-year-old kid to have an potentially 18-year-old Division One college kid bearing down on them, it's a totally different element than anything they've ever experienced, even in club. So, I think that we have to wait and see where we net out with before I put too much pressure on any of the freshmen.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said, going to basketball games and stuff like that, because I do both. You forget sometimes these kids are 14, 15 years old.
Yeah,
When you see them, in their element playing, sometimes they don't play it, but then, if they make a mistake, you got to realize, hey, they're 14, 15, it's
of
going to happen.
course.
What are some goals you have, team goals you have set, or that you're looking to set, when the season starts?
I mean, the two things that we've talked about big time were about winning our home games, because I think that that's a huge, like, if you win all of your home games and you can get a result on the road, you're going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's like where we're going to start as far as like things when you can look at record wise. But I think internally, like, we have kids who just need to, our thing has been like talking about taking the next step. So like and that's different for each individual kid.
Yeah.
So our two, Brooke and Aaron, who have been 2-year starters for us, it's about like, okay, can they assume a leadership role now? The juniors who played last year, can they like be also guiding players? And the seniors that played, last year, Ariana Moioli and, Bella Ross and some of those players, like, can they step in and can they be players we can lean on to play a whole game? Who's going to take over those roles? I think it's just a year of growth for us, which I think every year should be, but I think this year more than most.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, your sophomore class, your junior class, it sounds like you have a good core there. I look forward to, seeing this, especially.
As much as we have a core, the junior class is like a big core. I think our senior class is very good also. There's plenty of players that are ready to take the next step that were just blocked by
somebody,
a senior in that position, or, rotational situation or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of them are ready.
Yeah.
So
that's one difference between soccer and basketball. Soccer, there's usually a senior in that spot that is just as good, where, basketball, you see a little more like a freshman getting, in there, but, soccer, the upperclassmen, they're there, they're just as good. And, you got to wait to earn your spot.
I mean, I don't follow basketball as much as to be able to have an educated conversation about it. But I always wonder that how, like, and listen, our girls team is as good as, that's kind of where we're like trying to get our standard to, is right, be where they are, or be where, where Coach Carpel is, and or where Kim Lombardi is with the softball team.
Yeah.
But like where they're that dominant team every year. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we want to go. We want to like take the next step towards that level, which is just, you have to win your division every year.
Yeah, that's
the next step, is win the division.
Yep. And then, you build off that, it moves to short conference tournaments and state titles.
But you can't get an early seed and get that rest and get, the promise of home games without winning your division.
Exactly. I agree with that. And, like we touched earlier, short conference, I know for basketball, they think, winning a short conference is more important sometimes than winning the states, because, stuff, similar to soccer, it's a very tough, tough division.
And public schools win it, which you don't see in a lot of places. Even on the boys' side, public schools win it.
Yeah. I mean, and, look at the girl, Middletown South,
yeah.
Freehold Township, always up there.
Freehold Township's phenomenal. Yeah. Jackson Memorial is good. Toms River North is always good. Wall's always good.
Yeah, yeah.
You can go down. There's Shore Regional might be down this year, but I never want to play them.
Yeah. The two brick schools, they always develop their. I was talking.
Point's starting to get good.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Point Beach when they played St. Rose. They gave St. Rose everything they could handle during one game I went to this year. Went back down. I didn't get to see Point Borough. I'm going to make sure I check them out this year. Let's see how Point Borough. and Freel, you play for Reelborough, they don't.
Right.
Um,
They're gritty always.
yeah. I mean,
Always.
I was at the Freel Township game when they beat them in overtime. They just didn't give up. They just kept attacking until they tied the game in regulation, and then they had a beautiful shot to win it.
They don't change from year to year, but it's always a battle.
Yeah.
Always.
All right, Coach, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you for being the first coach doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I look forward. I definitely will be at some of your games, and I'll say hello. And I look forward to the season.
Sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait to get out on the field, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the girls are psyched to get going too. So thank you for the coverage.
Yeah.
As a sport that doesn't get a ton of it, I know I could speak for a lot of the coaches, and definitely for my players at least, we very much appreciate it.
Yeah, the feedback I've gotten from every coach so far, yes, and
Of
I'm
course.
hoping to change that. Hopefully, Shore Sports. I'm going to take Shore Sports Network. Hopefully, I think the first game they covered was the semifinals of the Shore Conference. It's the first game they covered.
I mean, it's limited resources. Maybe with playing on like flip days, you know what I mean? Like, there's only so many reporters.
Yes, yeah, and APP they only got the two reporters that split up
Right.
boys, girls, and the one has to cover field hockey too on top of that. So
I know.
how can you be at two places at one time?
But then again, you have all like the huddle and all that stuff that you're getting more by delivering that than having having him try and cover 30 games in one day.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah. Me and him, we speak often, and he'll ask me once in a while for questions and stuff. If I'm at a game and stuff. So
they're doing the best they can.
Yeah, no, they are.
It's going back to the referee thing you were talking about earlier. It's the same thing. Like, listen, unless we change our behavior as like coaches, players, parents, whatever, the way we treat the referees, we're not getting the good ones to stay. So
yeah, that's
it's hard.
I'm friendly with a few basketball refs, and they're struggling to find people to do it.
Yeah, I know.
Who wants to? And then we say who wants to get yelled at for an hour nonstop from every direction, and
I know.
So that's why I said for me, soccer ref, as long as you protect the players, you blow a call, you're gonna blow a call, whatever. Just protect the players, especially such a physical game. You don't want to see anybody getting hurt.
For sure.
So.
For sure.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much.
And I'll let you know when this gets uploaded, and I'll send it over to you and tag you.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Coach. Bye.
Have a good one.